Good afternoon, folks. This is Tina Freeman, and you may have watched another video that I did about what to do if CPS knocks on your door and you're not familiar with the agency. I went into a few details as far as Texas Public Policy Foundation, Texas Homeschool Coalition, but I mentioned safety plans in that video. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what happened in our case. This was in 2020, May of 2020 through April of 2021. Now, this was during COVID, so it did impact things a little bit. But in order for me to tell you what happened with the safety plan, this is why I advised parents when CPS comes not to sign any sort of safety plan without getting advice from an attorney, calling some of these agencies first, because depending on which region of the department, what region of DFPS you live in, or what county you live in, things work a little bit differently. It shouldn't be that way since it's a statewide agency, but it does. So there are innocent parents out there. More and more stories are coming out about what occurs even in Texas. Now, the legislature, each session, every 2 years, they're trying to pass new laws to prevent some of these things from happening. And unfortunately, there are more and more cases of parents and other individuals harming and killing children. And that's unfortunate, because those people, one, it's sad that that's happening, but it impacts other families that aren't doing these things, or they're not as serious and then may need some kind of help with services, etc. Now, okay, so let me get back to my family's case. I have several grandchildren, and 2 of my grandchildren were impacted by this case in 2020. And it all started over domestic violence. And there are types of cases people think that are not familiar with CPS. They think that CPS just comes in and removes children, and that's the only thing they do. But they have something they call participation in services that doesn't result in a removal, at least not right away. But court is involved. You have to go in front of a judge. Thanks to a bill that passed in 2021, indigent parents will now have an attorney even if they have to or requested to do services for whatever reason. Prior to that, they were just left on their own, and services could go a long time. There was no time period or time limit on how long those could go. So CPS would have their attorney, but the parents, if they couldn't afford one, just wouldn't have one. And if you tried to talk during a court hearing and you didn't ask a question like an attorney might, you got shut down. I know that for a fact because my daughter, when she had her case, did not have an attorney. So the case was started by domestic violence, her ex-husband on my daughter, and CPS gets involved. Now, immediately they want you to drug test, and there were some drug issues in this case, yes. CPS ended up showing up. I got a call. I picked up my grandkids. It's hard to go into all the details because there were just so much that happened, and this was a participation in services case, but yet the judge did indicate where the kids were going to be during this 9-month-long case, or by the time it got filed with the court. So it started in May of 2020 with a domestic violence. So CPS will get involved. They'll want you to sign a safety plan, which I think my ex-son-in-law's mother did sign a safety plan initially, and she didn't follow up with it. She broke the safety plan, but that was never brought up later on when I broke it. But I'll explain to you why I broke it. So there was domestic violence. They pressured her to get a protective order. She did not go do that, but my ex-son-in-law was not staying away, and he was the one that caused the assault. And so the kids, I had went to pick up my daughter and the kids and brought them to my home to make sure that they were protected from any sort of thing. My ex-son-in-law was not in his right frame of mind and was doing meth. And so I brought him to my house, and the caseworker said that he needed to come over and that day. And so he appeared at our house about 10:30 that night to talk to my grandchildren and my daughter and to us. So he ran criminal histories on me and my husband. And this was all between 10:30 and midnight at night. And so there had been an allegation of drug abuse after the domestic violence allegation. They were already involved. So this is why I ended up bringing them to my house, because there had been an allegation. Now at this point, it's just allegations. Someone had called in. We knew later who had called it in. It was a member of the other side of the family that did not like my daughter. And we know that because she started texting my daughter about how much she enjoyed her call to CPS. You know, now they can't call anonymously, but back then they could. So the caseworker is at my house. He runs criminal histories on us, and we signed this safety plan. She was going to have to go drug test, and she could not be alone with the kids unsupervised until the results of this drug test came back. And so he says, okay, it would be a few days, and she had to do a UA and a hair follicle. So days went by and we did not hear anything. She tried to contact the caseworker. I tried to contact the caseworker with no response. So, you know, at this point, kids are uprooted. They're out of their normal routine. I didn't believe there was any drug use by my daughter, so she ended up going back home. Now, he was not there. Long story. He was got put in jail for an incident with their neighbor who had helped her after the assault. So he was not there, and that was the primary issue at that point, was him being around her and the kids. So she goes back home, and we didn't know until later that another caseworker had gotten involved, and voila, a month and a half later, you know, I get a call that her drug test was positive. Now, they don't offer any proof. There's nothing that says procedure was done correctly. It's just she's in. So at this point, I broke the safety plan. I'm in trouble. Well, she immediately goes and files and requests a petition for them to order in. Well, they had already done that, for the order to participate in services. But immediately when the drug test came back, she requests for removal. Now, in the meantime, my ex-son-in-law had admitted to using, and his drug test was inconclusive at that point. We found out later that he had continued using. He went to treatment, etc. But when she first goes to court, then CPS does another little safety plan on how this is all going to work, with supervision, etc., who's going to be around the kids and who, you know. Well, at this point, because I had broke the safety plan, of course, there was no proof that she was using any sort of drugs at this point. There had only been domestic violence with him and her. And so because I had broke the safety plan, I could not be around my grandkids without being supervised by another one of my daughters. And this went on. I had to fight and argue about this for I don't know how long. Now, here I came from the county, and the assistant DA is involved in all this. I do not know the CPS workers. And I'm not saying people should get it passed because they've been involved with the system, but they should have known me well enough. But this is the way it works. You break a safety plan, You have put the kids in danger, even though I knew they weren't in danger. And at that point, until we got this all figured out with the drug test, okay, yeah, I can see. So even later on, when my daughter in the court case kept going, I won't get into details about that, but as we go along, they'll allow supervised visitation for this one, that one, a contingent upon negative drug test, whatever. It was, even though my daughter could have unsupervised visits at some point with the kids because she had negative tests. She only had that one positive test the whole time, and I'll get into the drug testing issue hopefully in another video. But these visits are contingent upon negative tests. Well, it was about 5 months, almost 6 months, before my daughter could stay overnight in my household with the grandchildren, supervised by me. And she had one positive test months and months earlier. And so what you find is, in this system, is the CPS, the judge will kind of defer to CPS, or CPS will say the judge is doing this, or my attorney is doing this, and it's like this circle that you never know who is responsible for the decisions. And half the time, they don't even know what's going on, really, with the kids, really. But anyway, that's a situation with a safety plan. Like I said, if you break it, doesn't matter really what the circumstances are. You put the kids in danger, and they will use that as non-compliance to take the court case even further, or file if they haven't already done so. Okay, so I'll get into the drug testing later, but this will just be a little bit to tell you about why I made the statement about signing the placement plan or the safety plan. They're two different things, but just always talk to an attorney if you can. Make some calls before you sign one. But I should be back at a later time to discuss some of the other issues. Once again, it's Tina Freeman. Thank you for your time.